Hey, my handsome ladies and gentlemen, this is Shmeaty. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. Pawnard is one of my favorite limited meta Pokemon when it is available to be ran. It's not always every day that you're going to be able to run Pawnard, but I feel like it really shines in the meta so that it is eligible in. And I feel like this year's Halloween Cup is no exception. Despite one of the top meta threats being Nidoqueen with Mudslap, and Golurk as well, I still feel like Pawnard, if it can avoid those picks, still has a pretty decent niche for itself. Speaking of, in game number 1, it's going to be Pawnard leading into a Greninja. Pawnard, with that Fury Cutter, actually has a pretty interesting niche where it just shreds Greninja to pieces. They are going to be forced to shield up a potential X-Scissor there, firing off 2 Fury Cutters, switching into the Florges. Florges able to get that Fairy Wind Sneak, no shield a Hydra Cannon, and now in comes Shadow Scizor. Shadow Scizor unfortunately going to make very short work of our Florges, making that very brief cameo appearance, but now we can bring in the Pawnard, and Pawnard fully wall Scizor as well, so opposing trainer in game number 1, very soft to the Pawnard. They are going to get that Night Slash boost, but we are going to Night Slash right back in retaliation. They're going to let it go, maybe not realizing that they got the boost, but they are now bringing in that Golurk. Golurk going to be able to fire off a Shadow Punch before the Hex Drifblim is going to be able to make an Icy Wind. They're going to go for that Shadow Punch. They bring in the Greninja. I undertap the Icy Wind because this is a win-win scenario for me. The Greninja is now very low. They can go for a Night Slash, but the Night Slash is not going to be able to KO. So, very happy to no-shield it. It still does quite a lot of damage for that being debuffed, but now we can very happily just shield up the second Night Slash, and now look to bring in the Pawnard, get that Fury Cutter farm down, and if they bring back in that Golurk, Golurk just got 2 Mudslaps through, but 2 Mudslaps will not be enough energy for them to leave with that Shadow Punch, so we are going to be able to reach the Icy Wind. We had the Shadow Ball as well, but Icy Wind will be more than enough to KO in game number 1. GG's. Pawnard leads into Nidoqueen in the next game, a much worse lead for me. I'm going to immediately safe switch into the Florges, as I've learned that just safe switching immediately into Florges allows you to go for the Chilling Water instantly if the Nidoqueen elects to stay in, meaning that you can land more than 50% of the Nidoqueen's health and also debuff them so that your life is just a little bit easier. But this Nidoqueen elects to instead switch into their Corsola, and Corsola is going to be a little bit problematic here. I'm going to shield up, as I would much rather shield this Nightshade than no shield it and then get Astonished down. I overfarm too much. Going for good timing is going to be the death of me in this situation, but we are going to be able to make 2 further Chilling Waters. So Florges going to be able to force either both shields or switch advantage from the Galarian Corsola. Is Galarian Corsola going to put up the second shield? Indeed they are, but now we can bring in the Pawnard for the full farm down, but they pivot into Galarian Moltres. This opponent made a very critical error in this game. They fought very hard for switch advantage, and then immediately conceded switch advantage in fear of the Pawnard farm down. Pawnard is going to be able to make a Night Slash after that first Iron Head, and yes, we are running Iron Head on our Pawnard because I felt like X-Scissor didn't help me out too much. We do get the Night Slash boost. It's not going to be too helpful in that scenario, but nevertheless we can bring in the Drifblim, and Drifblim going to go for an Icy Wind. Icy Wind number 1 not quite going to be enough to KO here. I'm going to call a potential Poison Fang bait and get absolutely edged. Stone Edge does quite a lot of damage there. They bring back in the Galarian Corsola. Corsola going to be able to make a last second Nightshade. This is not a particularly good situation for us, but Fury Cutter is resisted, meaning that we do get a few of those off. We're able to make a Night Slash at the last possible second. Will it KO the Nidoqueen? Indeed it does. GG's to this trainer. Very important note, if you play for switch advantage and give up both of your shields, you probably want to keep switch advantage because that playstyle is contingent on you deciding that I can win this game if my Pokemon are in the right place. But if you willingly put them outside of the right place, then you can end up losing pretty easily. Nevertheless, you are going to see the Nidoqueen stay in and go for a Poison Fang. Poison Fang is going to be shielded, as of course it would do a lot of damage onto the Florges. They bring in a Wigglytuff. Definitely not a very big fan of this team, but we're going to try to make it happen regardless. We are going to see Florges going to be able to connect with a Chilling Water debuff onto this Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff now debuffed, and all of this energy is going to be resisted onto the Pawnard. So they go for the Icy Wind, but I'm not too afraid of the Icy Wind. They may think that we don't have Iron Head. This is an off-meta moveset. I'm not sure if PV Poke would recommend it. I don't even know if PV Poke would recommend this Pokemon at all, but I decided for Iron Head because I wanted coverage into Fairies, and if I got aligned onto an Azumarill, it's a much better time if I don't have X-Scissor as well. We are going to see in the back, they do have a Murkrow. We bank the Night Slash and almost the Iron Head for later, but we don't quite have it. We're still 2 Fury Cutters away. So I bring in the Florges, get the Chilling Water debuff, the Fairy Winds, putting a pretty hefty amount of pressure onto that Murkrow. It is a 2-shield Murkrow, however, so I'm going to need to grab that second shield, and I have just the Pokemon for the job. In comes the Drifloon. Murkrow has Dark Pulse for some reason. Trainer, you are 1 charge TM away from having the appropriate moveset. Nevertheless, they're going to go for a Drill Peck this time. I'm really unsure what's going on now, but I'm going to be able to get this Icy Wind off. And now, I think I've debuffed this Murkrow just enough where we can aggressively pivot into the Pawnard. Pawnard able to live a peck even though it was on very low HP. We are able to get that Iron Head off. GG's to this trainer. Getting into the next game, Shadow Scizor leads into our Pawnard, and I love this lead a lot because Pawnard has a pacing advantage. Whereas it's 9 turns to our first Night Slash, it is 10 turns to the Scisor's first Night Slash. So we're going to be able to connect with a Night Slash or do big damage onto the Scizor. They are going to stay in, look to likely fire off a Trailblaze to guarantee a boost on these Bullet Punches, but instead they go for a Night Slash. They attempt to catch on my own Night Slash, which isn't the best for me, but it's actually pretty manageable. If I just bring in my Florges here, I'm going to be able to handle this Azumarill pretty well. This time, once again, this is an actual Azumarill, not a Klefki sighting like in the last video. Trailblaze lands onto the Azumarill, and a second one will guarantee a knockout. I'm going to no-shield whatever the Azu intends on throwing here. They're all going to likely be on Ice Beam and Play Rough in this cup. I apologize if that bit of advice gets you Hydro Pumped in the near future, but I feel like this Trailblaze is going to nearly KO. I undercharge it intentionally, and now I could potentially look to shield up my Florges in this very bad matchup just for this Chilling Water. This Chilling Water is now 2 stages boosted. The Scizor will not be able to survive. They opt to let it go, bringing in their Shadow Drapion, and now they have an Aqua Tail, but I have no shields. This is going to be a pretty difficult matchup for me. Aqua Tail leaves us on 1 HP. Pawnard able to get a further Night Slash thanks to that Steel typing, allowing us to double resist that Poison Sting. We're not out of the woods yet because we have a Drifloon aligned onto a Drapion now. This definitely not a good situation, but the Drapion is going to be able to reach a move before we get our Icy Wind. If it's a crunch, we're cooked, but this one throws an Aqua Tail. I thought for a second that maybe this Drapion was Aqua Tail and Sludge Bomb, or maybe they anticipated a catch, but I tried to play it safe, try to make a catch onto the Florges. I failed the catch, and now this crunch. Oh wait, they don't even have crunch. This is a little bit embarrassing. I'm going to get Aqua Tailed for the second time, and now this is going to be a Sludge Bomb BM. You know what, GG's, I can't even be mad at that. But something I definitely can be mad at, Pawnard leads into a Shadow Murkrow. Shadow Murkrow, of course, does do quite a lot of damage, but these pecks are resisted where a bulk of its damage is going to come from in this matchup because I am not going to no-shield. I fire off the Night Slash onto the Murkrow. Murkrow going to be able to build up to the second move. I decide here that I do want to shield up as this is still going to do a lot of damage. However, the game freezes. And seeing this, I've only got one thing left to say. Scopely, you guys need to lock in. This is embarrassing. This glitch has been going on for over a year now, and sometimes you shield a move and the game just breaks. There's like nothing left that I could do here except for closing the app, reopening it, and coming back to a screen that says the previous battle could not be recovered, and I get a guaranteed loss for a game that could have potentially ended up looking pretty promising. Nevertheless, getting into the next one, it's going to be Pawnard leading into Greninja once again. It's speaking of a promising looking game, we are going to now be able to bring in our Drifloon. Drifloon going to be able to get the outpace onto the Icy Wind before the Nidoqueen's able to reach that Stone Edge. So I'm very happy to, I'm pretty sure I'll just shield up this Stone Edge, because I think I may even be able to go for a full Astonish farm down. I'm not doing the most damage with Astonish, but I know that this is only going to be the Poison Fang. The Nidoqueen throws the Poison Fang in fear of potentially getting farmed down, but that's going to happen anyway. They save the Nidoqueen with very low HP and not a lot of energy stored. They're going to bring in that Greninja. Now that the Greninja's debuffed, I'm more than happy to just bring in the Pawnard. I could have potentially looked to debuff them 2 stages, but I don't think that is as impactful as me just putting pressure onto the Greninja and getting my Pawnard aligned where basically I need it. I know that I don't want it on the Nidoqueen, even if the Nidoqueen has 5 HP. They are going to fire off a move here. It's likely to be a Night Slash, which will KO. Night Slash does pick up the knockout, but now we just bring in the Florges, and in the back, they've got a Fortress. This is the perfect Pokemon for my opponent to have in the back. We go for the Chilling Water. Now we aggressively pivot into the Drifloon. Drifloon has that Shadow Ball loaded. Shadow Ball going to grab a shield from the Fortress. The Bug Bites, they are a 1-turn fast move. They are double resisted because of the Ghost and Flying typing, but they still do add up over time. They go for the Rock Tomb. Now I'm going to fire off another Shadow Ball at the Fortress. Rock Tomb is going to allow them to live that with ease. They bring in the Greninja. This is getting very, very bad for me. They are going to fire off a Night Slash that will be likely enough to KO the Drifloon. Back in comes the Florges. Florges able to get that farm down. Back in comes the Fortress. Fortress top lefts, realizing that we are going to be able to make that Chilling Water. And in the next game, a very familiar lead. Another Greninja onto our Pawnard. This one opts to throw immediately. It's a little difficult to call if I want to shield or not here. This Greninja decides to go for the bait and then bring in Scizor. Usually, if I'm going to pivot out of a bad matchup, I'm going to pivot out into something that has a better matchup, but Scizor is not that Pokemon, so I'm going to fire off Night Slash number 2 at the Scizor, putting some pressure on the Scizor. 1 Fury Cutter switch into the Drifloon. Did I catch the Trailblaze? That is definitely the better move to go for into the Pawnard. I did catch the Trailblaze. They may very well be able to make another Night Slash here, and indeed they are, but I think this might actually be a pretty useful shield. So I opt to shield it up. If they bring back in that Greninja, which they likely are, it's getting Shadow Balled. I don't care that it is resisted. This Greninja is not going to appreciate it. Greninja gets rocked very low by that move, and now they have a Florges in the back. This Florges is going to be met with an Icy Wind, and now we can just pivot into the mirror. Now that they're debuffed, there is not really a way for them to come back, even though they have a shield, and I do not. They're going to fire off the Trailblaze, looking to bring their attack back to neutral, but I'm going to drop it right back to -1 with the Chilling Water. Chilling Water here going to apply too much pressure for this Florges. At this point, I would be viewing this as a top leftable offense, but my opponent seems to see something that I do not. And now I'm going to be able to go for the Chilling Water, but not before anticipating their catch. We farm down the Greninja, the catch attempt failed, GG's to them. Pawnard leads into Shadow Scizor in the next game. What a unique Pokemon that I've never seen ran in this cup before. Going to go for the Night Slash as soon as I can. Night Slash on 9, going to be good timing, and before they're able to make their own move. That Night Slash does a lot of damage. Now I just pivot into my Drifloon. I don't care if this is a Night Slash or if this is a Trailblaze. It's a Trailblaze. They reacted very, very slowly to it, and now I'm going to be able to go for a Shadow Ball at the incoming Azumarill. Maybe not where we want to see the Azumarill. As a matter of fact, this is probably the worst place for us to see it. But I don't really think that this is the worst case scenario. I'm going to shield up my Drifloon just so that I can end up putting more pressure onto this Azu. I'm building up to when they get to their next Ice Beam, then I'm going to pivot back into my Pawnard. If they want to bring back in the Scizor, they can certainly do that, but I don't think that's a play that they want to make. They're going to be able to go for the Play Rough. That will knock out the Pawnard. Pawnard's still pretty glassy, so Play Rough, even though it's neutral from an Azu, is still going to be enough to KO from over half health. I'm going to bring in my Drifloon now just so that I can fire off this Icy Wind and look for a Hex Farm down. They're going to shield it up, and now they have another Ice Beam. I, of course, am going to shield this move up because I really would not like to be Ice Beamed right now. They bring back in the Scizor. Scizor going to be met with yet another Icy Wind, and it all comes down to what they have in the back. I am going to go for my Icy Wind onto the incoming Jellicent. This may not seem like a particularly good use of energy, but I know that my Drifloon was going to end up getting KO'd there regardless. So I opt to now bring in my Florges, and I'm going for a very devious Chilling Water bait. Chilling Water going to be able to grab that shield from the Jellicent. Jellicent not trying to take a Trailblaze here, and now they're going to fire off -2 energy in the hopes of burning the switch timer. They bring back in the Azu. Azu does not have a lot of energy stored, so Florges able to build up to that back-to-back Trailblaze. Trailblaze going to KO the Azu, and at +1 will also win CMP and pick up the knockout onto the Jellicent. GG's to this trainer. I love this absolutely buggy mess of a game. Did you see me queue into that trainer and then get the welcome to the Go Battle League screen there? What is that? Okay, pretty bad lead as Pawnard leads into a Fortress, which we are going to safe switch into our Florges, and then we're met with a Shadow Dusclops. Shadow Dusclops does not see a lot of play in the Open Great League, as the boosted damage it gets is not worth the severe hit that it takes to its bulk, especially with a Pokemon like Dusclops that also does not have a very high HP stat, so it's not going to be very comfortably surviving moves if it is surviving them. Chilling Water, number 2, going to be able to land onto that Dusclops, and Dusclops is now very, very low. They are going to be able to go for a Shadow Punch here, but I can just look to pivot back into the Pawnard, and now that I can get some energy with my Pawnard here, this isn't the worst thing ever. The Shadow Punch connects, but at -2 it's not going to be that impactful. I'm going to go for my Night Slash pretty much immediately, because we're both one-turn users, and I don't really want to either get a debuff here or get farmed down before I get my move. The Sand Tomb is now reached by the Fortress. I'm going to no-shield it, but the Sand Tomb still does pretty significant damage for that being a Sand Tomb. Not able to make that Night Slash. I die with it, in fact. And now I'm bringing in my Drifloon. They are going to be able to reach a Rock Tomb here. I think no-shielding this is a guaranteed lose con, so I'm going to shield it up. Rock Tomb is, of course, going to be shielded up here. And again, they have the perfect Pokemon for me in the back with my Florges and a Drifloon alignment here. So we are going to see them now bring in the Azumarill. I am going to go for a Shadow Ball. This might actually be playable. Bringing in the Florges. Florges has the move stored, so I'm going to go for a Trailblaze. Trailblaze going to grab not a shield from the Azu, which is a bit of a surprise. I don't know what they're saving their shields for. Probably for this Chilling Water bait. I'm going to go for a Chilling Water. Chilling Water does not get shielded by the Azu. Azu looking for the farm down, but greedily they are now going to be -2 thanks to the fact that they decided to go for it. Knowing when to Chilling Water and when to Trailblaze is a very important part of running Florges. They opt to try to bank the move, but they can now bring back in the Azu. I am not in Ice Beam range though, and crucially, their Pokemon in the back of the Fortress does not have a lot of fast move pressure into my Drifloon. This is a CMP tie to their next Ice Beam. Does the Icy Wind KO? Icy Wind KOs the Azu. Will I get farmed down? It looks like we just need 2 hexes, but no, we needed 3. And they're going to be able to make the game-winning Rock Tomb. GG's to this trainer. What a close game. We've now made it to the final game of the video, where for one last time, like Ariana Grande, we've got Pawnard leading into Scizor. I'm going to fire off a Night Slash at the Scizor. Scizor going to not appreciate that damage, so going to oblige with a shield. They're going to be able to fire off a Night Slash at me or a Trailblaze before I get to my second, if they so choose, but they elect not to, and just let their Scizor get really, really low. I now bring in my Drifloon. Drifloon going to go for the Icy Wind. Icy Wind here is going to be pretty nice for us because the Mandibuzz is also on Air Slash, meaning that its pacing is really, really bad. I can now put up a shield onto this Drifloon and watch as the Mandibuzz struggles in vain to try to get rid of the Drifloon. It is going to be really sad for the Mandy. And now we can build up to when they get to that next Dark Pulse, switch into the Pawnard, and they are now forced throwing -2 energy at the Pawnard. The Dark Pulse does next to nothing. I am going to look to overfarm, keep some energy so that when that Scizor comes in, I do have a competent amount of energy to potentially force them to throw. Night Slash aimed at the Mandibuzz leaves them on 1 HP, but the Fury Cutter that sneaks through will get the knockout. Do they bring back in the Scizor, or are they going to show third? They bring back in the Scizor. Scizor is going to be able to dispatch my Pawnard with a Night Slash. They have 2 moves there, so it's not really a whole lot of use in shielding. They're going to fire off another Night Slash, which a little bit unfortunate. They have the double though, so I have to respect it here. They bring in their Dusclops in the back. Dusclops, not going to appreciate the fact that I have this Shadow Ball going to land. I am going to build up to when they get their Shadow Punch, then switch into the Florges. Florges should be able to comfortably survive anything not named Poltergeist here. It's not going to be a Poltergeist though. I go for one further Fairy Wind and the Chilling Water onto the Dusclops. Dusclops is now going to get pretty meaningfully debuffed because it doesn't do much damage to speak of to start with, and now that they're -1, this is just a truly miserable experience for the Clops. I am going to go for 4 further Fairy Winds and yet another Chilling Water. They do have a catch potential available in the back, and they go for it here. In comes the Scizor, looking for that Bullet Punch farm down, but we have that Icy Wind, so if they go for the Shadow Punch, we are going to be able to win the CMP tie. The Icy Wind KOs. GG's to this trainer. If you guys made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed getting to run Pawnard, and for one of the first times in one of these limited metas, getting to run it with Iron Head for coverage into those Azus, which I think came in handy about 0 times, but I got to hit a Galarian Moltres with an Iron Head and they got surprised, and I killed a Wigglytuff with one, so you know what, those are W's, right? Lowercase W's, not the big W's I was hoping for, but hey, it is what it is. Pawnard felt pretty competent in this meta where you may not on paper think that it is, with the basically the most top meta ubiquitous Pokemon you can see going to be Nidoqueen. You may think that people would stray away from picks like Pawnard, but if I could run this team more often and I didn't have to make more videos, I would definitely do it. So with all that being said, thanks once again so much for watching. I've been Shmeaty. I hope to see you all again next time, and have a good rest of your day. See ya.